Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55. Hi, everyone. Super excited to share a friend with you today. Kristina Bouweiri is the CEO of Reston Limo, which is the largest limousine and bus service in the Washington, D.C. area. And yes, I said Kristina. She is a woman in a totally male-dominated space. And I'm so excited to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Kristina with a K.
Kristina with a K. It being interviewed by Kristina with a CH. No, I have known you now for years, and I remember hearing you speak at an event, and you told your story, and I was just mesmerized. So I want to go back to, when you met your husband and how you got into the space, because it's really where this story begins of how you grew this incredible business.
True. Okay. So my story is that I always like to start with my childhood because it had such an impact on all my decisions. So I was born in Japan and lived overseas for 20 years. And because my father was in the foreign service. So I lived all over the world. It was wonderful. And then I had to come to the United States, of course, for college. So I went to GW and I got a degree in international affairs. And I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps and join the foreign service. And so got a degree in that. My senior year, I was offered an internship at this nonprofit that uplifted the status of women in the third world. And then they offered me a job. So I decided to join the nonprofit instead of joining the foreign service. So I went back to Africa. I lived in Somalia and I worked on projects to uplift the status of women. And I did that for 2 years. And then I decided that job was not for me. And I came back to the States. And the only job I could find was 100% commission sales advertising. And I was just cold calling out of the yellow pages. And I made an appointment with William Bouweiri, who owned Reston Limousine. Made an appointment to sell him an ad. So that's how it all started. You could say I found my husband in the yellow pages.
I love that.
That was the beginning. And that's how, he owned Reston Limousine. And we started dating. And about 4 months later, he said, quit your job and come work for me. And I did. And within a year, we were married. And that's how I got in the limousine business.
And then you had kids. So you are a mom.
I'm a mom. But you know what? I couldn't get pregnant for 5 years. I had infertility.
I didn't know that.
It was unexplained. And I look back now and I really think that everything happens for a reason. And my first 5 years in the limo business, I was able to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Why? Because I didn't have kids. And by the time I was blessed with healthy boy-girl twins, my business was big enough that I could afford to hire people to do my job and I could take a maternity. So that's part of my story too, that I couldn't get pregnant for 5 years.
Right. And so many people listening to this and watching this have been through that.
Yes.
But I like how you saw the silver lining in that, and so many people, like me too, we've had successful careers and kids, and how do you balance it? And, a lot of people that I've interviewed have left these incredible jobs because it was time to go home. It was okay to say, I want to spend some time with my kids. So you learn the industry, you're in 5 years, but I mean, you had a different growth idea for the company than your husband did. So let's talk a little bit about that. And
Sure.
What you did.
So when I met him, he had 5 cars and he was 100% corporate. And I said, why don't we do proms? And he's like, I don't want those kids to mess up my cars. And I'm like, we're going to do proms. And I was like, why don't we do weddings? And he's like, he was Lebanese. And he said, I don't like to deal with brides. He, had this thick Arabic accent. And I said, well, I'll deal with brides because I thought that was silly. We weren't doing weddings. And so I bought lists of brides and I cold called brides. And within a year, we're doing 100 weddings a weekend. So we started out 100% corporate. We added proms, weddings. And then one day we just got really lucky and a guy knocked on our door and asked us if we wanted to bid on a government contract. And I said, what's that?
Right. What?
What's a government contract? Had no idea. And he said, my wife works for U.S. Geological Survey in Reston, and they have a 2-van contract that goes back and forth between Reston and D.C. all day long. And if you win, I'd like to be a driver. And I said, sure, bring me the paperwork. Filled it out, won that contract. And then I thought to myself, well, there have to be more of these. And so I started researching government contracts and, of course, bid on everything I possibly could. And the next 5 years, we won every government contract that we bid on. And so in the 90s, we were growing like crazy. We went from 200,000 in revenue to 5 million. And that was with government contracts, weddings. And then, of course, we were in Reston during the 90s, which was what we call the go-go years with all the dot-coms. We had all the dot-coms using us. We had a contract with the Hyatt Reston and America Online. We drove Ted Leonsis to work every day for 4 years. We drove all those guys. And it was kind of interesting because it was really good. And I thought, oh, maybe it'll always be like this. And of course, we all know that nothing lasts forever.
How many cars did you have then? So you started out with 5 when you met your husband.
I would say we were probably at about maybe 60 or 70 when in the first 10 years.
Wow. And this was you. Like this, I want to give you credit. Like you started cold calling brides. Like you really saw this vision of what this company could be.
Yeah, I was the sales and marketing person, and I also took over operations. My husband was he handled accounting, HR, and fleet management. And he was very good at what he did. And I have to give him credit, very smart, no college degree. But he was an entrepreneur, and he had the guts to start a business. I mean, honestly, if we had never met, I don't think I would have started a business. So I was lucky in that regard. And self-taught, he was self-taught in many, many things, including computers. He figured out how to build computers, and he managed our database and computer system for many, many years. So those were his skills. And then mine was sales, marketing, and operations.
I was going to say, and I bet he learned to love brides when you were doing 100 a weekend.
Not really.
So then, what happened next?
Okay, so we got through 10 years, and then we bought 25 acres in Leesburg. We built our dream home. It had a pool, a tennis court, a wine cellar, and we thought we had it made and life was going to be grand. And then 9/11 happened, and everything came to a standstill. We had just moved into our house in February, and in September, 9/11 happened. And so literally business came to a standstill. We had, of course, all the airports were closed, so no airport transportation. All of our corporate travel just stopped. Many of our shuttle contracts stopped. And of course, individuals were not out celebrating anything. So it was just, there was no retail business. And it was, of course, very scary. I think I was more scared for our country than I was for me. I think I was a little bit in shock, and I wasn't really thinking about the long-term impact it would have on our business. And by then,
nobody knew. We'd never experienced anything like this.
Yeah.
And living in the DC area, we were, impacted because it was right there. And I think I think shock is the perfect word to use for that.
Yeah. A couple of really bad things happened to us. We had bought land to build our own facility, and we had an SBA loan to get that built. And my bank dropped me after 9/11. And I said, why? I've never made a late payment. I'm on time. I still have a business running. And they said, well, we think that the next terrorist attack will be in DC, and you have 50 buses in Washington every day, and we think that's a threat. And I thought, what?
Wow.
How can you lose your bank over something like that? But they dropped me. And then it took me about 6 months to find another bank. So that was definitely one of the worst things that ever happened to me.
Wow. But you found another bank, and the economy did come back slowly. And
we got through. I have to say, though, for 5 years after 9/11, we were not profitable. We didn't lose money. We just kind of broke even. And we were very lucky that we were able to stay in business like that, because, it's not really, even if I didn't want to make a profit, my bank wants me to make a profit, right?
Sure.
So we were lucky, and we just kind of hung in there. And we were able to partner with our builder and get our building built. So we kind of self-financed that whole thing. And, we did also make a decision at that time that my husband would stay home with the kids. So what happened was the school bus wouldn't come to our neighborhood because we were in a rural area. Like they wouldn't come up our street. And it was like a mile and a half to the mailbox. And, we wouldn't want our kids to walk to the mailbox. They were young.
Right.
We had, I think, a kindergartner, a preschooler, and 2 in first grade. You're not going to have them walk to the mailbox. So we made a decision that my husband would stay home with the kids and I would run the business. And we were so happy as a couple that one of us could stay home with the kids. And it sort of naturally turned into him. He was a little bit burned out, a little bit tired of the business. And I was like so into the business. And I just was excited and knew we could continue to grow. And so I gladly took it over.
That's amazing. But life changed for you a little bit, right? You are no longer married to your husband.
Well, we were still married for another 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So we grew.
But how did you end up with here? It's his company. He started it.
Yeah.
How did you end up, again, in a very male-dominated world of buses and limos? You're certainly an anomaly. How did that come about?
Well, all I can say is that I think that everything I ever did in my life really prepared me for this job. I mean, I wanted a job that would, let me travel and be sort of involved internationally. And this job is very international. We drive lots of, not celebrities. We do drive celebrities. I meant to say diplomats. We have a lot of embassy clients. We have the World Bank, the IMF. We have the Pan American Health Organization. Anyway, we have a lot of international clients. And so I still feel like this is very international, and we can provide a car anywhere in the world. So we do a lot of work around the world for our clients. And, I don't know why I ended up in transportation, but I can say that I like to be challenged, and this business is very busy. We're very busy, and every day is different. And it's all about sort of juggling balls. And so I always like to say women are especially good at that. In fact, I have so many women that work for me. Most of my dispatchers are women. A lot of my managers are women. We now have about 30 or 40% female drivers. So women are really good at juggling balls. Guess what? Why? Yeah. Because we do it at home. We manage the household. We manage our kids' schedules. We manage everything, food, sports, education. That's what running a business is like, especially the limousine business, because we're juggling vehicles, clients, schedules, changes. We have to be flexible. We have to be adaptable. And so I think women have natural skill sets for managing companies and being CEOs, especially in logistics.
Yeah, I agree. And I've said this before, and if you follow Simon Sinek, he says that all companies should be run by a woman. We just have a different skill set, add in the empathy and the sympathy, and you've proven that certainly in running this business. So what happened to you during the pandemic? When you brought up 9/11, it just sparked that.
So the pandemic was even worse. I mean, nobody can truly prepare for a pandemic. I mean, I was thinking about it and I thought, okay, how much money would I have had to have in the bank to get through a pandemic? And it was like $10 million. And I did not have $10 million in the bank. I think my line of credit is about $3 million. So it was really scary because business just came to a standstill once again.
Right.
And the worst part was we had to start refunding deposits. And we had to refund $1 million in deposits with no money coming in. And I just didn't see a way out. I sat there and thought, I'm not going to get through this. This company is not going to survive the pandemic. And I had to lay off 300 people. I had 450 employees and I had to lay off 300 people, which was the worst day of my life. And I think I was in shock again. I was very numb, and I was just not seeing a solution to my problem. So I guess it was about March 13th that we laid off all those people. Some of these dates I'll never forget. And then I think it was April 17th that we got our first PPP loan. And when I got that loan, I thought to myself, well, I think we can figure this out. I wasn't sure about it, but I thought we're going to give this a try. We're going to try and stay in business. But what we did do,
and there was no end in sight.
No,
you had no idea to know, a pandemic is going to last 3 months or 6 months. And at least then you could plan for it and budget but nobody knew anything.
I didn't fire any or lay off any managers. I thought I'm going to retain these people. They're so important to me. But each manager ended up doing like 3 jobs. They really, really worked above and beyond. I want to really compliment my managers. So what we did was we spent that time looking at all of our processes and figuring out better ways of doing everything that we did, because we're a busy company. We are open 24/7. And we've grown about 7% a year since the beginning. And so there's never been any downtime to really sit back and look at, what are we doing? And is this the right way to do things? Is this the most effective way? The first thing we did is we had a technology summit. And I actually hired some consultants to come into my business and analyze every department and tell me what we were doing well and what we weren't doing well. And the first thing we did was we did a technology summit. And we were using about 15 types of technology. Yeah. And it was redundant, and we were able to cut out about half of that. And we had triple entry in every department, and we were able to cut that down to just 1. So we used the time to just become better. And so when we came out of the pandemic, we actually were a much stronger company. My revenues have not gone back to where they were completely, but our profit margins are higher because we had to raise our rates. Because our biggest challenge was drivers. And I don't know if you've read any of these articles, but many, many drivers around the country from lots of different industries decided to retire. And so when we got busy again, it was almost impossible to hire people to drive. And so we had to raise our pay to the drivers, and we had to raise our rates to accommodate that. And so now we are a much better company. We're more streamlined. We operate more efficiently, and we are more profitable.
So again, Kristina, you found the silver lining.
Somehow.
And let's just knock on wood and pray that those are your only 2. We've got nothing else coming. But you have some you just signed. You just told me a super exciting contract.
Yes. My son is my director of sales. I have 1 boy and 3 girls. And my son closed the Major League Soccer account. They're coming to Washington the second week of July. We have to hire about 80 additional people for that. 40 of them will be drivers and 40 will be greeters. And Major League Soccer is providing brand new Audi sedans. Audi is a sponsor. So it's going to be really exciting and a great opportunity. They move every year to a different city. So it's not like we'll have the opportunity next year. So we're super excited.
That's so awesome. So they provide the cars. You just provide the drivers.
They'll provide those cars, but they're still going to use our buses and our vans and our SUVs. So we think our entire fleet will be busy for them that week.
Wow.
It's quite a big deal.
That's so exciting.
In fact, I have a little gossip. Kim Kardashian coming for that. Kim Kardashian.
Woohoo!
So
I've gotten a lot of scoops on my podcast, and I'm very excited about this.
She is an influencer that Major League Soccer is paying to come to the event. And so she'll be there, and we get to drive her. And I don't know how I'm going to pick who gets to drive Kim, but they're all going to line up and beg me, right?
Right. I was going to say, can I come and just open the door?
They'll be fun.
My best girlfriend from high school is a professional makeup artist. And we have this running joke that it's not really a joke because I'm dead serious. And I've said this since I was her muse in makeup school when we were in our 20s. When she finally does Brad Pitt's makeup, I get to hold the makeup case. Like, that's the thing. So, and when I get a random call from her, I'm like, are you with Brad Pitt? Should I come over?
That's so fun.
So for fun, I read that, and tell me if this is true. You never know what you find on the internet. Have you really been to 60 countries?
60. Wow. Let me think. Probably. I, growing up, I went to many, and then my parents were quite excited about traveling. So, like in the summertime, we'd get 2 months off, and they had a camper, and we would go around and visit lots of other countries wherever we were living at the time. So we lived in Japan, Brazil, Portugal, and 10 years in Africa. So yes, I've probably been to 60 countries.
Wow. Do you speak Japanese?
So Japanese was my first language, and my parents wanted, my sister was born there as well. They wanted us to be bilingual, but we lost our Japanese when we started to learn English. It became evident it was going to be one or the other. We didn't want to learn English. So the only way we could learn English is if they stopped speaking Japanese to us. But I was fluent in Portuguese for many years, and I've studied French, and I speak Spanish. So I can get by in those countries.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And the Spanish probably helped you,
Very much.
especially in this area. Yeah, in business.
If I could pick a language to be fluent in, it would be Spanish. It'd be so useful. I mean, I get by, but I'd love to be fluent.
Well, so my first language is German, and when I go back and I'm immersed in it, so I think you should just go to Spain for a month.
I think I should go for 6 months.
I like that. You're running such a fabulously efficient business. You can do that. So tell us, what's your favorite, like you said, Kim Kardashian's coming. That's going to be such a highlight. Tell us one really fun story from Reston Limousine over the years.
Oh, gosh, I have so many. Well, I think the one that people love the most is this time that we had an Asian delegation from overseas, and they called us up and asked for a proposal, and it was about $10,000 in value. And they wanted us to bring our vehicles to their office the next day so they could take a look at them and make sure they were fine. And my sales manager, this was in 2000 and probably 5 or 6, my sales manager at the time was very young and very inexperienced. And so I said, Joe, I need to come with you. You can't handle this by yourself. So we go downtown, and they take us into this conference room, and I'm the only woman. And I'm sitting at this table with like 12 Asian men, and they won't look at me. They're only looking at Joe. And so they're asking all these questions. Joe is looking at them, but I have to answer. And one of their questions was, do you have a limo service in New York and Boston? And we said, well, we can handle everything for you. We'll make all the arrangements. And so we went down there for a $10,000 opportunity, and we left with a $100,000 opportunity. And no one ever talked to me or looked at me, but it didn't let it bother me. I thought, you know what? That must be their culture. I'm not going to worry about it. It's business. So the week started, and everything was going great. And then our buses took them to New York, and then they took them to Boston. And I get a call from the embassy. They want to meet with me at 8:00 at night at the Willard Hotel. And I thought that was so weird. I'd never had a client want to meet with me like at 8:00 at night. So I go downtown with Joe, and we had a driver take us, which was good. And we go into the Willard, and we call the client, and they come down, and they want to sit on a couch together in the lobby. And they said, we just want to pay our bill, because they had paid me a deposit. And I said, oh. And so I had the bill with me because I thought they were going to dispute the bill. She said, no, we just want to pay it. She opens up this briefcase and hands me $44,000 in cash.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I was so nervous I could hardly count it. And then I had to put it in my purse. And then we had to walk out to our car with $44,000 in my purse. And I thought, what if we didn't have a driver and we parked over on 15th Street,
Right.
So
you're walking through DC to your bag.
That's
my gosh.
Story. And so Joe and I went to Georgetown and had a really nice dinner.
Did you just lock the money in the trunk? What did you do with it?
With me.
Oh gosh.
So that's my craziest story about being in the limousine industry. But I have like 20 of those.
Wow. That's great. Oh my gosh. So as we wrap up, I always ask the guests the same 2 questions at the end of every episode. What is your greatest accomplishment since you've turned 50?
So I saw that in your notes, and I've been thinking about it, and I thought to myself, so many things have happened between 50 and I just turned 60. So between 50 and 60, and they're really big things. I mean, I'm going to say my number one accomplishment was getting divorced. So I was married for 19 years. And for most of that time, my husband did not treat me very well. So I needed to get the courage and the confidence to leave my marriage. And, the one thing I love about getting older is you get wiser and smarter and more comfortable in your own skin. And I got the courage to do that. So that was big. And then I bought him out of the house and the business. Now, for that, I had to get loans, which I just paid off. So I'm very excited about that. But I mean, other huge accomplishments would be having 3 of my kids graduate from college. My 3 daughters all went to college. I paid for everything. My husband never contributed. And my son went to school. He played tennis for Shenandoah. But then after one semester said he wanted to take a break because it was very difficult being an athlete and going to school. And I told him he had to come work for me, and that he could do whatever he wants in his life, but I would be his plan B. And my son has been here now 8 years, and he's probably my second most valued employee. He is incredible. He closes deals and he takes care of customers.
That's awesome. And how inspirational for people listening to hear what you've accomplished. And after 19 years, you made some big decisions for you, and that's okay. I love that. And then where do you see yourself in 10 years? I mean, 60 is young now.
Well, I hope I'll be retired.
Yeah.
I hope I'll be retired drinking pina coladas on an island somewhere.
I love it. An island that you own, I'm sure.
Oh, I don't know. I hope I'll be playing with grandchildren.
Yeah, I know, right? We have to be careful. I keep saying that to my kids and they're like, would you stop? Like, now is not the time. Do you think your son will take over your business?
He's I tried to cross train him in lots of different departments and he wasn't thrilled about that. He said, Mom, just please leave me in sales. I don't think he really would love, managing every department. He's so good at sales. I think that's really where his skill set is. He wouldn't be as happy. He could do it. He could do anything.
Right.
But I don't think he would be as happy as he is because he needs that competition and he needs to be winning. And that's what happens in sales for him. But I couldn't be more proud of all my kids, really.
That's wonderful to hear. And that you had 4 kids.
Yeah.
And did all this too. You are an inspiration.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me today. It was so awesome and great to see you.
It was so fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And congratulations on all the amazing things that are going on in your life too.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.